My name is Elena Rivera, and I'm a 23-year-old waitress working double shifts at a small diner in Los Angeles. Life hasn't been easy since Luna was born. I never imagined I'd be raising a daughter alone in a studio apartment that barely keeps out the cold night winds. But here I am clutching her to my chest on this overcrowded red-eye flight to Chicago, praying she stops crying before the passengers' glares burn holes through me. I'm exhausted beyond words, but I can't miss Vanessa's wedding. She's my sister, the only family I have left in this world. I could feel every judgmental stare like a hot brand against my skin as Luna's cries tore through the cabin. Each shriek echoed off the narrow overhead bins, ricocheting into my skull until I thought I'd collapse right there in the aisle. I bounced her gently against my chest, whispering desperate apologies to the passengers whose faces blurred in my tears. "Please, baby, please." "Mama's trying." My voice cracked thin and useless against her pain. Sleep deprivation does strange things to your body. It eats at your bones, gnaws at your sanity, blurs the lines between thoughts and hallucinations. I hadn't slept properly in over 36 hours. My last memory of the diner was the smell of burnt coffee clinging to my uniform and the greasy red tiles smudged with my own hurried footprints. I'd spent my final break in the walk-in freezer just so I could close my eyes for 5 minutes without anyone asking me for ketchup or extra ranch. But 5 minutes never lasts. And the flight that cost me every cent meant for next month's rent loomed over me like a silent threat. I looked down at Luna, her tiny face red and scrunched from exhaustion. She was so small. Her head fit into the crook of my elbow perfectly, as if my arms had been carved for her alone. And yet in that moment she felt impossibly heavy. Not just her weight, but the weight of keeping her alive when every day was a battle between buying formula or paying the electric bill. Between calling in sick to hold her through her fevers or risking losing my only job. Sometimes when the exhaustion hit me hardest, I wondered if Luna would remember any of this. The smell of stale sweat clinging to my hair as I rocked her to sleep, the thin blanket I used to swaddle her against the winter drafts. The quiet sobs I tried to muffle into my pillow each night when I calculated what bill I could skip paying. Would she hate me for not giving her more? Would she grow up and see me as a failure? A mother who couldn't even keep the lights on or the pantry stocked? A flight attendant approached, then her eyes hard and lined with years of forced smiles. "Ma'am," she said sharply, her voice slicing through my haze. "You need to keep your baby quiet. People are trying to rest." I tried to speak, but my throat closed up, the words stuck behind a dam of tears. "I'm trying," I whispered hoarsely. She hasn't slept. It's the noise, the routine change." My excuses died on my tongue as she walked away unimpressed. Sophia's wails, no. Luna's wails grew louder, sharper, and I saw passengers pulling out their phones, probably to record my humiliation. The inconsiderate mother who ruined everyone's flight. That would be the caption under my haggard face, Luna's screams immortalized online. An old man across the aisle shook his head with disgust. "Maybe you should have thought about this before bringing a baby on a plane," he muttered, not bothering to lower his voice. His words sliced deeper than any blade. I felt my chest cave in under the shame, my lungs burning from holding back sobs. I wanted to explain to him that driving wasn't an option. That my rusted Honda had died 3 weeks ago, smoke billowing from the hood as I clutched the steering wheel in the Taco Bell parking lot, praying to a God I wasn't sure existed. I wanted to tell him about the $300 in repairs I didn't have, about the eviction notice taped to my door, about how I'd spent my last $5 bill buying Luna's formula that morning instead of dinner for myself. But I said nothing. Because people like him didn't care about people like me. They saw a crying baby, an exhausted mother, and filed us away in their minds as annoyances, inconveniences, cautionary tales of what happens when you make bad choices. My arms ached from holding Luna. my back burned from hours of tense rocking. My heart, God, my heart. It felt like it was shattering in slow motion, tiny shards cutting into my ribs with every desperate beat. I closed my eyes, pressing my lips to her damp forehead. "I'm so sorry, mi vida," I whispered in Spanish, the language my own mother used when she wanted to soothe me. "I'm so sorry, I can't give you better." She screamed again, her tiny fists beating weakly against my chest, and in that moment, I wondered if I would survive this flight without completely breaking apart. Because the truth was, I didn't know how to keep going. I didn't know how to keep breathing under the crushing guilt and endless exhaustion. I didn't know how to keep being everything for her when I felt like nothing at all. And as Luna cried against me, the plane engine roaring beneath our feet, I felt the darkness closing in around the edges of my vision, a swirling fog of hopelessness that threatened to swallow me whole. Just as the darkness threatened to consume me, I heard a voice. Not harsh like the flight attendants, or cold like the old man's, but low and warm like sunlight peeking through storm clouds. "Excuse me, would you mind if I tried something?" I blinked, disoriented, and looked up. Standing in the cramped aisle beside me was a man in a tailored navy suit, hair dark and carefully styled. His blue eyes clear and kind in a way that made something deep in my chest ache with unfamiliar longing. He looked so out of place here, like he belonged in first class sipping champagne instead of crouching down to speak to an exhausted single mom with a screaming baby. His Italian leather shoes alone probably cost more than my rent. My mind scrambled to make sense of him. Was he annoyed? Was he going to yell at me too? "What?" I croaked, my voice brittle from exhaustion and shame. "I have some experience with babies," he said with a small smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes in a way that almost made him look boyish despite the expensive suit. "My sister has 3 kids under 5. Sometimes a different voice or touch helps." Would you trust me to try trust?" That word landed heavy in my chest. Trust was something I hadn't been able to afford for a long time. Trust got you hurt. Trust got you abandoned in a studio apartment with a baby and no money for diapers. But Luna was still crying, her tiny face red and twisted in distress, and I was so tired. I searched his face for any trace of judgment, impatience, or condescension. Anything that would tell me he was just another person seeing me as a burden. But all I saw was genuine concern, warmth, a quiet confidence that said, "Let me help carry this for a moment." "Okay," I whispered, my voice trembling with exhaustion and fear. My arms felt like lead as I lifted Luna towards him. Please be careful with her." He nodded once, solemn and gentle, as if I'd just handed him a priceless crystal. His large hands enveloped her tiny body with practiced ease, holding her close to his chest. He began to rock her slowly, his hand rubbing soothing circles on her back, and he hummed a low melody that vibrated through his chest into hers. Something miraculous happened. Her screams softened to whimpers, then faded into ragged breaths, and within seconds she lay still against his shoulder, her tiny fingers curling into his lapel. I felt my body sag with relief. Tears spilled down my cheeks, hot and silent, as the cabin descended into a hushed, grateful quiet. The flight attendant walked by, offering an approving nod, and I saw other passengers finally settle back into their seats, some casting the man grateful looks. "How did you do that?" I asked, my voice breaking. He smiled at me, his blue eyes warm and amused. "Like I said, lots of practice. Sometimes babies just need a change of scenery, or arms." For a moment, I simply watched him hold my daughter, stunned by how natural he looked with her tiny head resting against his broad chest. His suit jacket was probably getting wrinkled, and I saw a faint dark patch of drool spreading on his lapel, but he didn't seem to care at all. "What's her name?" he asked softly, continuing to rub gentle circles on her back. "Luna," I whispered, wiping my tears with the back of my shaking hand. "Her name is Luna." He looked at her and smiled. "Beautiful name." I'm Liam, by the way. Liam Ashford. Elena, I replied automatically. Elena Rivera. Nice to meet you, Elena, he said, and his voice wrapped around my name in a way that made it sound softer, almost beautiful. Don't mention it. We've all had moments like this. Maybe not with a baby, but moments where everything feels too heavy to carry alone. Something in his words cracked me open. The truth of it, the kindness. The way he said we've all had moments, as if I wasn't some pitiful outlier, but just another human struggling like everyone else. I felt a sob rise in my throat, but I swallowed it down, embarrassed. I wanted to take Luna back to prove I was strong enough to soothe her myself, but my arms felt weak, my chest felt hollow, and for the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to hold everything alone. She's fine here if you want to rest, Liam offered quietly, noticing my exhaustion. I don't mind holding her. You look like you could use some sleep. Sleep. The words sounded like heaven and betrayal all at once. I should have said no. I should have stayed awake, vigilant, guarded. But as I watched Luna sleeping peacefully against his chest, her tiny mouth slightly open, in the softest of snores, I felt my eyelids grow impossibly heavy. Are you sure? I asked, my voice already thick with approaching sleep. Absolutely, he replied softly. Rest. I've got her. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself believe him. I let my head fall back against the seat. I let the hum of the engines and the warmth of his quiet presence lull me into darkness. As I drifted away, I wondered distantly who this man was, this impossibly kind stranger with the expensive suit and gentle hands, and why he had chosen to help a mother like me, whose entire life felt like a broken apology whispered into the dark. I woke to the low rumble of the pilot's voice announcing our descent into Chicago. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The cold leather seat pressed against my cheek, and beside me was a warmth that wasn't Luna's tiny body. Then it all came rushing back, the crying, the shame, the stranger. I jolted upright, eyes darting to Liam. He was still holding Luna against his chest, one large hand cradling her back protectively. Her tiny fist clutched a wrinkle in his suit jacket, her mouth slack with sleep, peaceful and content. Oh my God, I whispered hoarsely, running a trembling hand through my tangled hair. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I fell asleep like that. You must think I'm completely irresponsible. Liam turned his head towards me with a soft smile, lines crinkling around his tired blue eyes. You were exhausted, Elena. Both of you needed the rest. Luna only woke up once, but I managed to keep her calm. He gently shifted her in his arms and passed her back to me. As her small weight settled against my chest, I felt both relief and a pang of sadness at losing the comforting warmth of Liam's embrace around her. She smelled faintly of his cologne, something expensive and crisp that clung to her tiny knitted hat like a promise of safety I couldn't afford. She's an angel when she's like this, Liam said quietly, watching us with an unreadable expression. She is, I replied, pressing my lips to her forehead. It's just everything has been so hard lately. I feel like I'm drowning and no one even notices. The words tumbled out before I could stop them, raw and shameful. I clenched my jaw, furious at myself for confessing to a stranger, for sounding so weak. Want to talk about it? He asked gently, his voice a balm to my frayed nerves. Sometimes it helps to tell someone who isn't involved. I hesitated, heart pounding. I had learned never to burden others with my problems. People didn't want to know about your brokenness. They wanted you to patch yourself up in silence. But there was something about Liam, the quiet steadiness in his gaze, the patience in his posture that made my chest loosen just a little. I'm a single mom, I whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Luna's father left when I told him I was pregnant. I work at a diner in LA. Double shifts overnight sometimes. My car broke down 3 weeks ago and I didn't have the money to fix it. I'm behind on rent. I used my last savings for this ticket because my sister Vanessa is getting married. We haven't spoken in 2 years. She thinks I ruined my life by having Luna, but she's the only family I have left since my mom died. I paused, swallowing the sob rising in my throat. My eyes burned with unshed tears as I stared at the blue patterned seat in front of me. I don't even know why I'm going. She only invited me because our mother's not here to guilt trip us into forgiving each other. When I finally dared to look at him, Liam's expression was unreadable. His jaw was tight, eyes thoughtful, as if choosing his words with care. "That takes incredible courage," he said, finally, his voice low and sincere. "Raising a child alone, working multiple jobs, and still making the effort to repair your relationship with your sister. You're stronger than you realize, Elena." I scoffed, bitter laughter bubbling up despite myself. "You don't know me. For all you know, I could have made terrible choices that led to this." Maybe he acknowledged softly. "But I've been watching you since we took off. The way you apologized to every passenger. How gently you held Luna even when you were shaking with exhaustion. The fact that you're going to a wedding where you might not even be welcome simply because she's your sister. Those aren't the actions of someone who makes terrible choices. Those are the actions of someone who cares deeply about doing the right thing." His words hit somewhere deep inside me, a place locked away for years. I blinked hard, trying to keep tears from falling. When was the last time someone had said something kind about me, about who I was, not what I could do for them? "What about you?" I asked, needing to deflect before my walls crumbled completely. "You never told me what you do for work. And you don't exactly look like someone who belongs back here in economy with the rest of us." Liam chuckled softly, looking away for a moment. "I work in business," he said vaguely. "And sometimes I prefer economy. You meet real people back here. First class can feel disconnected." "That's a very diplomatic non-answer," I said, narrowing my eyes playfully, despite the ache in my chest. "Are you some kind of mystery man? Should I be worried I fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder?" "Nothing dangerous, I promise," he replied, his smile tinged with something sad I couldn't quite place. "Let's just say I try to help people when I can, and sometimes it's easier to do that without a lot of fanfare." Before I could press further, the plane shuddered slightly as the wheels lowered and the captain's voice came overhead with landing instructions. Around us, passengers began gathering their belongings, their world already shifting back to Earth. I clutched Luna tighter, feeling something inside me break at the thought of leaving him. Because for those few quiet hours in the sky, I had felt like someone saw me not as a burden, not as a charity case, but as a human being worthy of care. And I didn't know how to say goodbye to that. The plane touched down with a gentle thud that rippled through my bones. As the engines roared in reverse thrust, Luna stirred in my arms but didn't wake. For a moment I sat there frozen, staring at the seat in front of me, clinging to the last remnants of peace I'd felt in Liam's presence. Then the world snapped back into motion. Passengers unbuckled with frantic urgency. Overhead bins slammed open, the flight attendants' polite announcements cut through with the scraping of luggage wheels and the murmur of people re-entering their lives. "This is probably where we say goodbye," I said softly, my voice shaking despite myself. "I can't thank you enough for everything. You saved me from total humiliation. And Luna, she hasn't slept like that in weeks." Liam didn't reply immediately. Instead, he reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a cream-colored business card embossed with simple black lettering. He held it out to me. "If you ever need anything," he said quietly, his gaze locking with mine, "and I mean anything, please call this number." I took the card, frowning, as I read the name printed in raised letters, Liam Ashford, CEO, Ashford Industries. Below was a direct phone number and a Chicago address I couldn't even imagine affording to visit. My breath caught. CEO. Ashford Industries. Even I, a diner waitress who spent more time memorizing daily specials than reading financial news, knew the name. They were famous for their charitable programs, especially for single mothers and affordable housing. You're Liam Ashford," I whispered, my voice hoarse. I stared at the card, then at him, as if trying to make the two versions of this man fit into a single reality. The gentle stranger who held my baby and hummed her to sleep. The billionaire CEO with charities spanning half the country. "Guilty as charged," he said with a sheepish smile. I was trying to avoid mentioning it. People treat me differently when they know. I felt my stomach twist, shame and anger churning together. The puzzle pieces slammed together so hard it hurt. His interest, his kindness, his vague talk about helping people. The truth slashed through me like shattered glass. This was about charity. I said, my voice low but shaking with betrayal. "You sat here listening to my sob story because you wanted to, what, recruit me? Turn me into one of your program success stories to put on your website." "Elena, no." "No," Liam said quickly, his blue eyes wide with alarm. "That's not what this is." "Yes, my company has programs that help women in your situation, but that's not why I helped you. I saw a mother who was drowning and I cut him off, my voice breaking. Tears welled in my eyes, hot and humiliating. "Don't pretend this was anything but pity. God, I thought you actually cared about me. As a person, not as some demographic." Other passengers began to glance our way, sensing the tension despite their rush to exit. I clutched Luna tighter against my chest, feeling the betrayal clawing at my throat. "Do you have any idea?" I whispered, my voice trembling, "what it feels like to be seen only as a burden your entire life by your family, by strangers, by the father of your child, and now by you, someone who pretended to be kind but was just collecting stories to make yourself feel better." "It's not like that," he said desperately, standing as the line to exit began moving. "I swear, Elena, yes, I run programs to help single mothers, because I grew up watching my own mother work 3 jobs to keep us fed. I know what this life is. But helping you today wasn't about my company. It was personal." I stared at him, trying to read the truth in his eyes, but all I felt was exhaustion. Bone-deep, soul-deep exhaustion. "Please," he said softly, as I shifted Luna higher on my shoulder and reached for my tattered duffel bag in the overhead bin. "Please don't walk away thinking I only saw you as a statistic. You are so much more than that." I didn't reply. I couldn't. My throat burned with unshed tears as I shuffled down the narrow aisle, Luna heavy against my chest, my body aching with fatigue and disappointment. I kept my eyes forward, refusing to look back at the man who, for a few stolen hours in the night sky, made me feel like I was worth something. The cold Chicago air slapped my face as I stepped off the plane and into the jet bridge. I buried my face in Luna's soft hair and breathed in her warmth. She stirred sleepily, her tiny hand curling around my necklace, grounding me back to what truly mattered. I didn't need pity. I didn't need charity. I needed to be strong enough to keep going. For her, for us. Behind me, I heard Liam's footsteps echoing in the corridor. I quickened my pace, weaving through the crowd until his presence faded into the hum of 100 strangers, all moving towards their own destinations, towards their own waiting heartbreaks and hopes. And as I walked into the fluorescent glow of O'Hare Airport, I told myself that whatever Liam Ashford thought he saw in me, it didn't matter. Because the only person who could save me was me. And I would. Even if it broke every last piece of me to do it. I didn't look back as I stepped into the terminal. My entire body felt like it was vibrating with exhaustion, humiliation, and something dangerously close to grief. I kept walking one foot in front of the other, Luna's warm weight anchored against my chest as my duffel bag dug painfully into my shoulder. The arrivals hall buzzed with morning chaos. Families reunited in tight hugs, businessmen barked into phones, children squealed with excitement about snow outside the glass walls. I moved through it all like a ghost, invisible, untouched, clutching Luna so tightly that her sleepy whimper broke my trance. "Sorry, baby," I whispered, adjusting her blanket. She blinked up at me with bleary eyes, her thumb immediately finding her mouth. Just that tiny, instinctive gesture broke me a little more inside. She deserved so much better than this half-alive, half-broken version of a mother. But I was all she had. As I made my way to the baggage claim, I felt him before I saw him. That silent awareness prickled across my skin like a warm wind in winter. I turned, and there he was, Liam Ashford, striding through the terminal with purposeful grace, weaving effortlessly between people who instinctively moved out of his way. He looked powerful and determined, but his eyes softened when they landed on me. "Elena," he called, breathless as he reached me. "Please wait." I stiffened my pulse, pounding so loudly I could barely hear the rattle of luggage carousels around us. "Don't," I said quietly, unable to keep the quiver out of my voice. "Don't follow me. I had to." He said, his tone pleading but firm. "I couldn't just let you leave thinking what I snapped my anger, a brittle shell protecting the trembling ache inside, that you were my hero, that you're some kind of savior sweeping in to rescue the poor single mother struggling to keep her head above water." He flinched, and for a second, guilt flickered across his face. "I'm not trying to be your savior," he said softly. "I'm trying to help. There's a difference." "Not to me," I whispered. Tears blurred my vision, turning the bright terminal lights into a haze of gold and silver. Because help comes with strings. It comes with pity, judgment, expectations. And I can't carry that on top of everything else. "Elena," he said again, more urgently this time, stepping closer until I could smell his clean, expensive cologne. "Please, listen to me. I didn't approach you today because of your situation. I approached you because I saw you, really saw you, and I care." My chest tightened painfully at his words, because for a fleeting, dangerous moment, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to lean into his warmth, let his kindness wrap around me like a blanket, and close my eyes just for a little while. But reality roared back louder than his gentle voice. "You don't even know me," I said, shaking my head. "All you know is the broken pieces I spilled on that plane when I was too tired to keep them hidden." "That's enough," he replied, his voice low and fierce. "It's enough to know that you are strong and brave and fighting every single day for your daughter. And it's enough to know that I want to help carry some of that weight if you'll let me." I stared at him, my heart thudding painfully against my ribs. Around us, travelers bustled and announcements crackled overhead, but it felt like we were suspended in a silent bubble, just him and me, and the ragged, impossible truth between us. Why, I whispered, my voice breaking. Why me? He swallowed hard, his blue eyes glimmering with something I couldn't name. Because the moment I held Luna in my arms, I realized what real strength looks like. And the moment you fell asleep on my shoulder, I realized I didn't want to let you go. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Tears slid down my cheeks silently as Luna stirred against my chest. I pressed my lips to her hair, breathing in her familiar baby scent, grounding myself in the only reality I knew: survival. "I don't have space for this," I finally said, my voice shaking, "for whatever this is. I need to focus on keeping Luna alive, keeping a roof over our heads. I can't afford to hope for anything else." Liam's shoulders sagged and something like defeat flickered across his handsome face, but then he straightened, determination tightening his jaw. He reached into his pocket and pressed his business card into my free hand. "Take it anyway," he said softly. "If you ever need anything, diapers, formula, a safe place to stay, call me. Not as the CEO of Ashford Industries, but as someone who cares about you, about Luna, about both of you." I stared at the card in my trembling hand, the embossed letters blurring with tears. Liam Ashford. The name alone carried power and possibility I couldn't even fathom. But to me in that moment, it felt like a reminder of how far out of his world I truly was. "I can't promise anything," I whispered. "You don't have to," he replied, his voice breaking a little. "Just stay safe, please." I nodded, clutching Luna closer to my chest. Without another word, I turned and walked away, the din of the airport swallowing me whole. I didn't look back because I knew if I saw the hope on his face one more time, it would shatter whatever scraps of resolve I had left. As I stepped out into the crisp Chicago morning, the wind slicing through my thin jacket, I whispered into Luna's hair, "It's just us, mi vida. It's always been just us. And no matter how tired I am, I will never let anyone else carry that for me. Because if I do, I don't know if I'll ever be able to carry it again." And with that vow burning in my chest, I stepped forward into the biting wind, determined to survive, even if it meant breaking myself apart to do it. I didn't remember much of the taxi ride to the motel. My mind felt like it had been dipped in ice water, every thought frozen into numb fragments. The driver spoke in short, polite sentences, but I barely heard him. All I could focus on was the rhythmic rise and fall of Luna's chest against mine as she slept, her warm breath fanning against my collarbone. Each tiny exhale reminded me I had to keep going. For her. Always for her. When we finally arrived, I handed over my last $20 bill, praying silently that I wouldn't need it later. The motel loomed ahead, its flickering neon sign buzzing against the dawn sky. I trudged up the cracked concrete steps, ignoring the stares from a couple smoking by the vending machine. My room smelled like mildew and old cigarettes, but I didn't care. I just needed 4 walls to keep the cold out and a bed to collapse on. I laid Luna down first, adjusting the thin, scratchy motel blanket around her tiny body. She stirred, whimpering softly before her thumb found her mouth again, her eyelids fluttering closed in exhausted surrender. I watched her for a moment, memorizing every detail, her dark lashes fanned across flushed cheeks, the small wrinkle between her brows that made her look so serious, so much older than her 6 months of life. My heart ached with love so fierce it felt like it could burn me alive from the inside out. I sank onto the edge of the bed, clutching Liam's business card in my trembling hand. The embossed letters glimmered in the dim morning light. Liam Ashford, CEO, Ashford Industries. I ran my thumb over his name, my chest tightening. Part of me wanted to rip the card in half to erase his existence from my memory before it could plant seeds of hope I couldn't afford. But another part, the broken, exhausted part that longed for kindness, like parched earth craved rain, tucked it carefully into my wallet behind Luna's hospital birth photo, just in case. I didn't sleep that morning. I lay on my side watching Luna breathe, my body vibrating with exhaustion, but my mind refusing to quiet. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Liam's face, the warmth in his gaze when he looked at Luna, the sadness that shadowed his smile when I told him goodbye. Why did he care? Why did it hurt so much that he did? My phone buzzed beside me, the harsh vibration slicing through the silent room. I jumped heart-pounding, afraid it was my landlord, but it was a text from Vanessa. "Rehearsal dinner is at 7 tonight. You're still coming to the wedding tomorrow, right?" I stared at the message, reading it over and over. Her words were polite, formal, devoid of any affection. The Vanessa I remembered was loud and dramatic, her laughter filling every room she entered. But that was before I ruined everything by getting pregnant at 22, before she told me I was throwing my life away. Before Mom died and we were left with nothing but our own broken pieces. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "I don't know if I should come," then deleted it. I typed, "Yes, I'll be there," then deleted that too. Finally, with shaking fingers, I wrote, "I'll be there." I pressed Send before I could change my mind, my chest aching with the hollow certainty that tomorrow would be nothing more than a reminder of everything I'd lost, a reminder that I was no longer welcome in the world Vanessa lived in. I tucked my phone under my pillow and rolled onto my back, staring at the stained ceiling. Tears slid silently down my temples, soaking into the cheap motel sheets. I didn't sob. I didn't shake. I just lay there, letting the grief seep out of me like poison. Why did it hurt so much that Liam cared? Why did it terrify me more than all the days I spent alone struggling to survive? Because hope was dangerous. Hope made you weak. Hope made you reach out for something that was never yours to begin with. I closed my eyes, pressing the heels of my palms against them until colors burst behind my lids. I imagined Liam's voice again, low and warm, telling me I was strong, that I was brave, that he wanted to help carry some of my weight. "Don't think about him," I scolded myself. "Focus on Luna. Focus on surviving." But in the quiet shadows of that cheap motel room, with my daughter breathing softly beside me, and the world carrying on beyond the thin walls, I let myself whisper the truth. I couldn't say out loud, "I don't want to survive anymore. I want to live." And God help me, I think He made me remember that. The rehearsal dinner felt like a dream I didn't belong in. Everything glowed with soft gold and warm ivory lights strung across the rustic banquet hall. Long wooden tables were lined with crisp white linens, flickering candles, and elegant centerpieces of autumn dahlias and eucalyptus. Guests milled about in tailored suits and designer dresses, laughter floating into the high-raftered ceilings like music from a world I wasn't invited to join. I stood just inside the entrance, clutching Luna against my chest. She wore the only dress that still fit her, a pale pink cotton hand-me-down from the diner manager's niece. I'd washed it twice that morning in the motel sink, scrubbing out formula stains with motel soap until my fingers went numb. Her hair curled damp against her forehead, and her cheeks were flushed from the brisk Chicago wind. "Elena," I turned to see Vanessa, radiant in a cream cashmere wrap dress, her dark hair coiled into a sleek chignon. For a moment, she looked just like Mom, the same tilted chin, the same piercing brown eyes. But then her gaze flicked to Luna, and her mouth tightened into a polite smile. "You made it," she said stiffly. "I wasn't sure you would." I swallowed hard, adjusting Luna's blanket. "I said I'd come." An awkward silence stretched between us, filled only by the distant clinking of wine glasses and the soft strains of a string quartet warming up. Vanessa cleared her throat and gestured towards a table in the far corner. "There's a seat for you over there. It's away from the speakers so Luna can sleep." She turned before I could reply, drifting back into the crowd like a white swan gliding across dark water, leaving ripples in her wake. I walked to the table, my legs shaking with every step, feeling the burn of curious glances sliding over my thrift store sweater and scuffed flats. A few people smiled politely. Most looked away. I settled Luna into her carrier beside me and rocked her gently until her eyes fluttered closed. Dinner passed in a blur of quiet conversations and careful avoidance. No one spoke to me beyond a polite greeting. Vanessa gave a toast about love and family that made my chest ache. Every word felt like a needle sewing closed the distance between her and everyone else, a distance I could never bridge. I was halfway through picking at the cold chicken breast on my plate when I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a bank alert, reminding me of my negative balance or a text from my landlord about overdue rent. Instead, my breath caught. A known number. "Elena, it's Liam. I'm sorry to text you like this, but I needed to know you're okay. Are you—" My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack them. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. Part of me wanted to throw the phone into the half-empty water glass beside my plate and pretend he didn't exist. But the other part, the exhausted, lonely human part, needed to hear his voice, even if only through pixels on a cracked screen. "We're fine," I typed back. "At my sister's rehearsal dinner. Thanks for checking." His reply came almost instantly. "I'm glad. I know you don't want my help, but if you change your mind, please, call me anytime." I locked the screen and set the phone face down on the table. My chest burned with something dangerously close to longing. Why did he keep reaching out? Why couldn't he just let me disappear into the shadows where I belonged? Elena. I looked up to see Vanessa standing beside me again, her eyes softer this time, though. Her mouth was still tight with unspoken words. "Can we talk outside?" I nodded, gathering Luna in my arms and following her out into the crisp October night. The parking lot was mostly empty, lit only by dim yellow lamps that flickered with moths circling endlessly. Vanessa turned to face me, wrapping her arms around herself as the wind lifted strands of hair from her bun. For a long moment, she said nothing, just stared at me with eyes that glimmered in the half-light. "I owe you an apology," she said finally, her voice cracking. "2 years ago, when you told me you were pregnant, I said horrible things I can't ever take back." I swallowed hard, my throat tight with old pain. "You told me I was ruining my life, that I was selfish for having her." "I know." Her voice broke completely, then tears spilling down her carefully painted cheeks. "What I didn't tell you is that I was pregnant too. Michael and I had been trying for almost a year, and when you told me, I was so angry. Angry that it was easy for you, that you got what I wanted so desperately without even planning it." I stared at her, stunned into silence. "I lost the baby 2 weeks later," she whispered. "And instead of calling you, instead of apologizing, I buried myself in wedding planning. I pretended everything was fine because I didn't know how to face you, because I was jealous and angry and ashamed." The world tilted beneath me as her words sank in. I looked down at Luna, sleeping peacefully in my arms, unaware of the old wounds being torn open and cauterized in the moonlit parking lot. "I'm so sorry," Vanessa sobbed, covering her mouth with her trembling hand. "I thought if I pushed you away, it would hurt less." But it didn't. It just hurt in a different way. I felt tears spill down my cheeks, hot and silent. For so long, I had carried the pain of her rejection like a wound that never healed. But hearing her now broken, human, real, I realized she had been bleeding too. "I missed you," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I needed you." "I know," she cried, reaching for me. "I need you too." And in that cold, flickering parking lot beneath moth-swarmed lamps and the distant hum of laughter from inside, I let my sister hold me. I let her sob against my shoulder. I let her words stitch something broken in my chest back together, one trembling apology at a time. For the first time in years, I felt something warm bloom inside me. Something dangerously close to hope. The wedding morning dawned gray and bitterly cold. I woke on scratchy motel sheets, staring at the stained ceiling as Luna slept beside me. For a moment, I imagined another life, a warm bed, morning light, Luna babbling in her crib, and someone breathing steadily beside me. But reality always returned heavy and unkind. I dressed Luna in her pale pink dress from last night, cleaned on the heater, and pulled on my navy funeral dress, covering a small tear with my hair. My reflection in the cracked mirror looked like a stranger. The venue was beautiful, ivy-covered stone walls, towering oak doors, flowers taller than me. Guests in wool coats turned to look as I entered, holding Luna close, feeling out of place among chandeliers and polished marble. Vanessa appeared radiant in ivory lace tears in her eyes. "You came," she whispered, gripping my hand. "You look beautiful." I almost laughed, but managed I wouldn't miss it, as a bridesmaid took Luna and Vanessa hugged me, her gardenia vanilla perfume, wrapping me in memories of being her little sister, not just a woman surviving alone. During the ceremony, I sat at the back, tears slipping down my cheeks for Vanessa, for Mom, who wasn't there for myself in the life I thought I'd have. After I slipped out into the cold courtyard, needing air. "Elena," My heart lurched. Liam Ashford stood there in a black coat over his suit hair, ruffled by the breeze. I could only whisper. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa called. He said, stepping closer. "She told me you were here, that I should come." Tears blurred my vision as Luna reached for him and he took her gently, his face softening. "She missed you," he said, rubbing her back. "She doesn't even know you," I whispered. "She knows safety," he replied, locking eyes with me. "And so do you." My chest caved in as I hugged myself, fighting tears. "Why are you here, Liam? You have board meetings, foundations. Why me?" He took a deep breath. "Because ever since that night on the plane, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, about how strong you are. I don't want to just think about you anymore. I want to be here, with you, for both of you." I shook my head, voice breaking. "People like you don't end up with people like me. I'm nothing." He cut my cheek,